Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Sledgehammer Fight Show. Today we have an all-star fight show and I haven't even got to my guest yet. But speaking of guests, we have one of the best, a man affectionately known as the Murph. We have Brian, the Headhunter Murphy. Brian, thank you for coming along today. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for having us on the show.
Okay, and Brian, you're helping Daniel Visago with his fight on Destiny 3, which is on the 25th of October at the Beanley Arena.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, we're we've got Daniel fighting on the show. He's fighting a boy from New Zealand, very, very experienced. Daniel always wears his heart on his sleeves and comes in swinging. So yeah, it'll be a good fight. He'll be prepared.
When you were fighting, Brian, there wasn't too many more experienced guys than yourself. Like you had well over 90 fights to my recollection. And a couple of big fights too. You went to Japan for the world title.
Yeah, we fought over there. Unfortunately, I was never lucky enough to win them. I needed a bit of Scott Bannon's experience to be able to win some of those ones. But
yeah, he picked a few up, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, not quite in his category, I'd say, but you know, went around the traps.
You fought some of the great ones. You went 5 rounds with Ian Jacobs.
Once again, mate, when that fight come up, everyone said to me, you know, no one will fight. Well, this is how it come up. They said, no one will fight Ian Jacobs. No one will fight Ian Jacobs. No one will fight Ian Jacobs. And I said, well, no one's asked me. So I fight Ian Jacobs. He's only human. At the end of the day, I've got nothing to lose. Let's do it. So, yeah, that was probably one of the fights that sort of put me up there, I guess, because I got dropped in the probably first 30 seconds. And I remember waking up, I think, going into the last round, and I turned around and I said to Shane at the stage, I feel tired, I'm feeling tired, what's going on? He said, mate, you're in the last round. I still thought I was in the first round.
Really?
So I remember coming out to the 5th round, and then I don't remember again to probably sitting back at there having a beer afterwards and going, have we finished that fight yet? So, but it was a rugged fight. Once again, I enjoyed it. When I watched the tape, I thought I went a little bit better than what I thought I did. But yeah, no, that was just come back to a bit of heart and having a chin and having a go.
Yeah, well, the rivalry was Dale sort of culminated in a tag team match with Scott and yourself, and Scott will be here later, with Dale and myself, and that was one hell of a fight. It was the very first tag team kickboxing match. Nobody had ever thought of it, and I thought I'd come up with the idea, and I thought it was a good idea at the time until Brian was nice enough to break my nose. But that was a real good night, and we got a massive crowd and a great reaction from it.
Yeah, and I don't like to say I broke your nose, mate. I say I straightened it for you. You know what I mean? That's
actually,
how
it's funny, you know, because I do mean to have a quiet discussion with you about your behaviour that night, but we'll talk about that a bit later on anyway. Pace was incredible. Speaking of fights, there is a lot of talk going around about a possible matchup with Paul Gallen for charity soon. Have you spoken to Paul's manager? Like, is it a reality?
Okay,
or
yeah,
just talk?
Look, no, probably not charity. If it does go ahead now, it'll be a real fight. How that come about, just quickly with it, it was just watching State of Origin. I put a thing up about there when he was being a grub and everyone was hating on him. And then next thing you know, someone created a Facebook page and said, Brian Murphy versus Paul Gallen, let's make it happen. And it went absolutely crazy. So that did get back to them. I know people that know his people and all the rest of it. We did talk about it. We were going to have a look at trying to get it on the Alex Leopold fight originally, but with the bans that come through with Paul at the moment, that won't happen. But not saying it won't happen, we will definitely push for it. Now, if I get a set date and get myself back in shape again, I'd definitely like to step up there and have a go.
Brian Murphy, thank you very much, Brian. Good on you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Emmanuel Odie. Emmanuel, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
The pleasure's all ours. Emmanuel, you sort of came up in a tough upbringing in Uganda. You went to Europe, discovered boxing in Europe, won a lot of fights in Greece, and then came out to Australia and become the Australian champion.
Yes, it was an opportunity to come to Australia for only one fight.
Just the one?
One fight, and when I won that fight, I've been here now for 30 years now.
The story I got was you won that first fight and they asked you to stay for 6 months, and when you kept winning, you stayed here just to live.
That's true. So they gave me the second fight with New Zealand, who was the New Zealand champion by then. So when I beat the guy, they asked me to stay for another 6 months. So I ended up for 1 year, 2 years, up to 30 years now.
It's not a bad run for one fight, Emmanuel. That's great.
That's true.
And not only have you stayed in Australia, Emmanuel is running a gym at Maruka now. And how's that going for you?
We're doing quite well at the moment. So the gym is at Otti's Boxing for Fitness.
Yep.
At Desert Road. So,
Oh, that's at Maruka too.
Morocco, yes.
Oh, great. Now, the night you won the Australian title, it must have been like a childhood dream come true. Like, to be a national champion in your own country is pretty special, but to travel somewhere else and it being your second or third stop on a world tour and winning a national title in another country, that just must be unreal.
It was, and I had a good support in Queensland because the champion was from New South Wales.
Yep.
And because I was based in Queensland and I had a good support. So I didn't disappoint my supporters, so I ended up winning the Australian Middleweight Championship in fourth round by knockout.
By knockout. Well, when you fought, you're a devastating body puncher too. Like everyone knew, like when you fought yourself, they're going to end up with a sore set of ribs afterwards.
I did because I had a good trainer, Jimmy. So Reg Layton was a good coach, so I think we were well prepared for the title fight. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And you ended up having 36 fights in the ring, or was it more pro fights than that?
I had more pro fights, some in Europe,
Right.
and in Australia. So there's just over 40 fights.
Geez, that's not bad going for a pro fighter too, because you couldn't get fights nearly every week like you can now. Sometimes it'd be spaced 6 to 9 months apart. It would have been difficult just to get that roll going.
Yeah, I think at that time we were fighting at least every 3 months at Festival Hall. So we were quite busy at that time.
Have you got any future champions you might have coming through? Like you would have a couple of guys you got your eye on to turn professional?
I've got quite a few guys from Africa, which they're doing pretty well, but financial problems they've got for paying for their training fees and everything. So we're trying to get some sponsors
Right,
jump in so we can make sure their dreams come true.
Well, if there's anyone who'd like to help Emmanuel out financially, we're certainly all ears and we'll certainly pass anything on that we can. It's been good because I don't know if you'd remember, after the Sydney Olympics, a lot of the African boxers who were champions at home, they stayed in Australia and to a man, they all went brilliantly. 5 of them won Australian titles. Chris Karuki went on the Contender and he came runners up on that, and he had a great career too.
I think quite a few of them, and Samuel Mbik, I think, has won the world title for Australia.
Well, with any sort of luck, Emmanuel, you might have the next one.
Yeah, I did, like myself, I did fight for the world title as well, which I think...
That's what I got told. Who did you fight for that?
I fought for the world title for the champion was Chong Pal Park in Korea. So,
That's right, yeah, he was a tough guy too. And you fought Jeff Harding as well.
Jeff Harding was one of the hardest fighters I ever met in Australia here. So
Yeah, he had like a brick, that guy. He was a tough man. Those fights he had with Dennis Andres will go down in legend, I think.
I think it was the hardest. It was the hardest fight, the hardest punch as well, because he ended up winning world title twice, I think. Yeah.
That's right, he did, yeah.
Yes.
No, it's great going. Emmanuel, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're really proud to have you. It's like having boxing royalty here, in my opinion. And what we're going to do now, we're going to go to the technique workshop with Big Brendan. Now, we're going to show you a couple of little tricks just to get a bit of extra bang into your punches. Now, when we were all kids, we all grew up watching Bruce Lee, right? So anyway, Bruce Lee would always have this bit in a fight where he's throwing his techniques and the music's getting louder and he's yelling and throwing his punches and doing the cat sounds or whatever it was he does. And at the very end, he'll throw a punch, and when he does it, he leaves it in there for a split second or two. Now, we're going to do this without the theatrics, because the idea with this punch, my trainer, Jeff Wells, called it a shock punch. But what we're going to do, instead of just punching, if you hold that up a little bit higher, please, instead of just punching with that right hand and punching like that, where I still get a reasonably decent punch out of it, what we're going to do is throw this right hand and leave it in there for a split second. Okay, and you watch the extra power you get. You're going to notice when I'm throwing it, I'm not pulling your right hand back to here. That's what's called telegraphing your punch. A smart fighter like Brendan will know straight away, if I'm pulling that right hand back, he knows it's on its way. You're going to notice with that punch, you probably get an extra 30 to 40% power in it. It all comes to just throwing it off your chin and just leaving it there for that split second. Normally when you punch, you bring it straight back to your jaw. This time, we leave it there and you get that jar. Okay, there is another version of using this, and this one was taught to me by a fellow called Alan Moore, who was the Australian welterweight boxing champion. So I come from the very best. Now what we're going to do with this right hand, even with the jar, there's a little trick of which I use on my back foot, which is going to make this an extremely powerful punch. As I'm going in with my punch, there's your normal movement. Now we're going to go through this nice and slow. When I throw the punch, at the last split second before impact, I'll do a real sharp twist of that foot. And it comes through like that. What that does, it propels your body weight straight into that right hand. And if you're throwing that right hand and you drop your shoulder in at the same time, the power is unbelievable. Okay, we'll have a couple of slow goes with it, just the left and the right. You see how that foot just propels your body into that shot? It's just unbelievable power. Like if I try to hit you hard and I'm going like this, I can't do it, you know. I'm putting myself off balance, but once you pivot, power's unreal. Speaking of a man who doesn't need too many tips on himself, we have the People's Champion and the 3-time World Champion, Scott the Cannon Bannon. Scott, thanks for coming on today.
How are you, Jimmy?
Good, mate. Good. How's retirement treating you?
Sore, old, but it's good, mate.
Now, I did hear a little while ago you were starting to train guys again. Did you keep doing that?
Yeah, well, the problem with me doing that is I bounce off the ground a lot on a dirt bike just to test out how hard the ground is these days.
Yeah.
And it is getting harder. But I broke my shoulder. I had 6 months off for that. I've just come back from that. So I did a bit of pads now my knee's gone, so I've got to get an operation, and 3 weeks I'll be out for another 5 or 6 months. So.
That's a little bit unlucky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the name of the game, mate. I'm not going to stop having fun, you know.
Well, like a lot of pro fighters, and like Brian does as well, who was on earlier, you're into the refereeing the fights, you've promoted fights. Yeah, like myself, it's pretty much not too much in the game you haven't done.
I had a break for a while once I finally retired, you know, and sat out for a bit. But I do some commentary now for Paulie and the Legacy shows.
Oh, cool.
I ref for the WKBF, do some refereing for those guys.
But I'll tell you what, the highlight of your career, undoubtedly, has got to be that night at the Magic Millions when you beat Prince Amir for the world title.
Yeah, that was a cracker. I got all the respect in the world for Amir as a bloke and as a fighter. He kind of, when he beat me the first time, we had to go to the airport together in a car, and the car ran out of fuel. So me and Emmanuel pushing the car to the airport, and we just, he just beat me in a fight. He sort of, back in those days, we only had like 4 or 5 fights, and you had that bit of attitude still. Whereas Amir, first guy, a big guy that I fought, and you realise that it's just a fight. Straight after we were good mates, and we've been mates ever since. And
he is a nice fellow too.
Yeah, he's fought a lot of good guys, and he gave me the chance to rematch me, and I've got the world of respect for Amir, the hardest guy I've ever fought.
It's funny, because when you first started, I think you were doing Zentai Kai at the time.
No, I never did karate. I did
all right.
did Tok when I was a kid. And ninjutsu, had my ninja boots on, used to run around killing chickens. But I just mainly played footy. I just did it in the off season. The guys I trained with Neil Warder, and he was a Zentai Kai guy.
That's right.
Yeah, and underneath Malcolm and that's when I met Nugget and Headhunter and all the good boys.
Yeah, Scott, you're probably in agreement with me on a touchy subject about sanctioning bodies. Like there's a lot of them now. And I remember one time when I was helping and it was on one of your shows, you won a world title and you pretty much deposited straight to the rubbish bin.
There was no disrespect to anyone. It's just that back in our day there was 3 sanctioning bodies, when we were doing it, and we all promoted together. We all worked in together. It's just now, if a guy can't get a fight on a certain show, or he can't get on Legacy or something, he can't get that W whatever belt, they'll just make up another sanctioning body, and all of a sudden he's the Australian champion. That sort of, in my eyes, that lowers everyone. That's probably where the UFC have got it a bit dialed. If you're the UFC champion, you're the champion. That's it. I just think there's too many. If you can't get a fight for some guy and you can't earn it, well, you don't earn it. You don't just go fight for someone else and make up another title and then fight it. It makes the sport a bit. It's taking the prestige away from the sport a little bit.
It is a bit too, without being a knocker, because you can't have 12 individual Australian champions in the one weight division.
Yeah.
You've got to have the one guy.
You'd cop it every time. When you talk to someone, everyone they know is the Australian champ. Probably 65 on Facebook. And every poster, some guy's got 36 belts hanging off him, That's the one I like about the Legacy shows, and you don't have to have all the belts on the show.
Well, Nugget did the same thing. Nugget had the highest rating shows anywhere, the biggest shows, and no titles on it.
I think to be professional, we're going to have to start going more like boxing. There's not a pro boxer that's a main fighter. It's not contracted to a promoter.
Yeah.
The days of a trainer being your manager, your trainer, everything are probably gone, or they should go. And you need a smart manager to when you fight in Queensland, you fight for one promoter, you know, and then that promoter can build you up each fight. And so at the end of the year, you have a big fight against another guy. Like I had Bruce and Soren fighting on shows, and they fought together as a massive show. One of the best shows I've probably done.
Well, that is the way we used to do it. Like yourself, Shane Titleman, Jimmy Cass, and me, we'd always ring each other up to see when the show's on and help out. But nowadays it's like kill or be killed.
Yeah, and if you missed a fight and I had extra guys, we'd throw them to each other. But
that's exactly right.
it's a gentleman's agreement. I think it's got to get back to that.
It'd be nice, like, and this is no knock on guys who are trying to earn $1 and promoting. They're helping the sport and helping the fighters. And you can't really knock the fighters either. Like someone says, do you want to have a go at this? Of course they're going to have a crack at it.
Yeah. Pro fighters these days, and I don't want to be rude to any of them, but not everyone can be John Wayne Parr, not everyone can be Nathan Corbett, you know. And the same as trainers, not everyone can be Nugget and have a full-time job as a trainer. That took Nugget 20, 30 years to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Like you got to have a job, you know. Like if you only rely on fighting, you will take every single fight you get for whatever money you get, because that's what you got to live off. Like I'm doing okay with money, but that's not from fighting. And I didn't make millions of dollars being a fighter, but I've probably made a lot of money because I was a fighter, you know, if that makes sense, because people obviously know who you are. Like, look at Brian there, runs one of the biggest building companies in the country.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of that's from his skill level as a man, but also having the respect that he was a fighter. He's got the same as yourself. I just think a lot of guys now just think, I want to be a pro fighter and stop working. You know,
yeah, that's right.
It's a small avenue of the John Waynes and that can make good money. You know, there's probably, 5 guys in the country that could probably really make money and buy a house from it.
Hey, Scott, in the career that you had, like, had a lot of fights, 67 if I'm right.
Yeah.
Who would you rate as the hardest bloke you fought? Because there must have been a few there.
Probably Emir, mate, just because of how good he was, because he'd beaten everyone. And because he'd already beaten me, it was very important to me. And because I respected the guy, that was the one fight I trained perfect for. My weight was right, I trained right, my head was right. That's probably why it was my best fight. You know?
Yeah, that was a great fight. Yeah, so I was there for that one. No, well, that's good. It's good to hear your opinions on things too. Anyone can have an opinion, but when you have a respected fighter who's won these world titles, legitimate world titles, with a view on the sport to help it make it a lot better, I think it counts for a lot more than just the average guy on the street too. But anyway, in saying that, Scotty, mate, thanks for taking time, mate. You took a day off work today
Anytime,
to help
mate.
out. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got a big show coming up very shortly soon. But for today, you've just watched the Sledgehammer Fight Show.